So I think that we better start and see a little bit and hear a little bit more about LITE, the Language Integration Free Portfolio, which is the electronic portfolio and more than a portfolio, the environment that we developed through the project. And Jeff Lawrence was one of the two co-principal investigators, together with Aline Germain Rutherford, is going to present with the two graduate assistants, Michael Kozlowski and Manaf Karami. Oh, that's fine. I never know. Karami, I always mix the two. Yeah, he's at the University of Oslo. So we have, I'll let them introduce our last part, and then we will have the round table with the teacher.
Okay, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me well enough? Okay, thank you. So we're going to now talk about the technology component that Enrica and the others have sort of introduced a little bit about. And this is the e-portfolio component that we have been working on that really is one of the 4 pillars and really is used to complement and facilitate this plurilingual language teaching and learning process. So what we will do is I'll talk very briefly about some theoretical foundations that inform our approach towards technology, some of the background in the development of this technological tool that's been evolving continuously through the project. And then Michael will show us an example of what it looks like live with different features that are used. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the preliminary findings from students, teachers' perceptions around this digital tool and their perceptions around it. And Banaf and Michael will talk about, share those with us. So in terms of the sort of theory, when we came into this project, when it was developed initially in 2015, we always thought we wanted some technological component. And we did that really recognizing the fact that, you know, there is the potential with technology really as to play around with linguistic and emerging forms of linguistic and cultural expression. And we recognize the affordances in the literature that talk about the ability of technology to encourage experimentation and play with language and with culture and with identity. And the fact that we can negotiate our identities in these spaces quite vividly and through multimodal tools, and you know, have sort of convey impressions of our ideal sort of L2 or linguistic and cultural selves. And it can facilitate, as we'll see through the interactive display, an autonomous approach towards language, towards cultural learning, towards intercultural experimentation and strategic learning, and this plurilingual awareness that can develop. And we also recognize in the literature the ability of technology for language revitalization, to build resources and communities and networks for building tools that individuals can use to really sort of learn indigenous and heritage languages and really explore dialectal, contextually relevant versions of linguistic and cultural expression. And technology also is a collaborator in the process. And we'll talk a bit critically about that because, you know, it is framed often in an English learning, in English language context, which is an important aspect to critique. So when we originally conceived of the project, we thought we'd just go ahead and use a standard e-portfolio tool, very idealistically and optimistically. And when we started using and exploring these tools, which we did for many months, we realized their limitations. And their limitations in the fact that they dealt in English. The user interface was often just in English and had no flexibility around linguistic variation. And also these e-portfolio tools were often designed for content learning, not language learning. So there was this linear approach to the interface, not a cyclical, not a sort of reflective approach that we were looking for. So we realized that we many components to be developed, that these standard platforms weren't developed for the purposes we were hoping for. So we made the decision to create our own, which was quite daunting and still is. So we're still working through that, and Michael knows very well of the challenges and successes that we've had in the process. But we've really worked on designing this tool quite from scratch, and really working with it in an iterative manner, and getting feedback from our partners in this process, and what's working, what isn't, and some of the glitches that have occurred. So I'll leave it now for Michael to show us the tour of some of this tool that we've been developing. That's a bit of an e-portfolio, but not also much more.
All right, it's time for the fun part. All right. I'm just gonna walk you guys through some of the functionalities and the different pages that we have on LITE. Okay. So this is our landing page, which gives you just a brief description of the project and then the 4 pillars that were mentioned in the morning presentations. And you can click to get more information about each of these pillars. Okay, then usually what the class will do is initially we'll go to My Plurilingual Journey, and this is where they'll create their profile. So it's an interactive space encouraging identity negotiation and plurilingual pluricultural awareness. So kind of like a Facebook homepage or whatever. So you have your pictures, and then there's entries for the languages that you know that you're using, you're learning. You can also put images there. So I spent 5.5 years teaching in Japan, and I'm a kind of Japanese learner also now. So that's kind of the content of my profile. And then linguistic encounters and cultural encounters. So this was me at a Japanese soccer game where one of the players wanted to take a selfie with me. I was like, it's very strange.
Hi, Michael. Michael, sorry, we cannot see your screen.
You cannot see the screen. Okay.
We can see the PowerPoint.
Ah, okay.
New share. It was enough to go on new share. No, or resume. Yeah.
Angelica, tell us.
The best is to stop share.
Okay.
Choose the right screen to do a share. So at the bottom of the box.
Okay.
Yeah, so the correct screen now.
Not the PowerPoint, yeah.
Not PowerPoint.
Okay, here we go, yeah. Angelica, can you see me?
Yes, now we can see the picture. Yes.
Okay. All right, so again, where the learners will create their profiles. And then we have this community function. So we'll take a look at the LINCDIRE team members. So basically your class is organized with the profiles all on one page. So you can go to your classmates' pages, you can follow them, send them messages. So there's an interactive function, a social function as well to the platform. And then, so kind of the way we think about it is that this was the most difficult part of the design, was the radar charts. So the radar charts are based on the kind of CFR can-do statements. So I guess when we think about like a course starting using LITE, at the beginning you would do like a global level check. So there's questions based on the different language skills. And then you can choose the language you're learning. So at the moment we have English, French, German, Italian, and Ojibwe. And then you go through the can-do quiz, and you will select yes with help or not yet for these descriptors, these can-do descriptors. Okay, and then you basically go through the list, and this is kind of showing your proficiencies or your confidence in different languages at different levels. And then I'll show you guys so this is the kind of end result. So So those are my language proficiencies. You can see that my Italian is perfect. Ma français, c'est un petit peu, comment est-ce qu'on dit? I need to work on my French, right? Okay. But it's a really cool kind of graphic where you can see the different languages and your proficiencies from pre-A1 in the middle of the chart all the way to C2, right? Okay. And at the moment we have 5 languages. There's obviously potential to add many more as we go on.
Say something.
Yes.
What you can see is that it's not only all the 4 skills, but it's also mediation, plurilingual and pluricultural competence that are included.
Yes. Okay. So that radar chart is across languages. Okay. And then we also have, again, very similar, it's called a level check, where you choose your perceived level. So let's say A2, and then again, the language. We also have Bulgarian and Ukrainian on this one. And we can add as many as we need, or for the classes that they're doing light. Similar type of can-do quiz. And then you'll have your radar chart, this time within the 1 level. And you can kind of see your progress a little bit more fine-tuned. And again, the 7 different measurables as far as language proficiency and confidence. So I would say you do the level check a little bit more often to see, like, within that level, within A2, how you're progressing with the can-do statements. Okay, so that's the radar charts. And then we have, this is kind of cool, this is the task catalog. So these are all of our tasks that we've developed, organized by level. So I think we talked about the fall feast earlier this morning. So the teachers can go in initially and look at the task catalog and decide maybe which tasks they want to use with their classes. Some of the tasks are across different levels. Okay, so yeah, there's quite a few of them here. And then, yeah, teachers can click on the task and read the description. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then similar to the template that was mentioned earlier, I think by Jason this morning, we have all the tasks step by step, very easy to follow. And then each task, again, will also have a can-do quiz online at the end of the task. And teachers can augment and change that depending on the features that they chose for their specific task, for their specific class. Okay, and then oftentimes within a task, you want to have some material created. So this is our make a post function. So students can post content, media, videos, pictures, text in the make a post function. And then, as we mentioned before as well today, the my best work, the learners can choose to collect some of their best work, stuff they're most proud of in this section. Okay, and then again, the potential for classmates to comment. So Dennis and Tim commented on my post. So again, kind of an interactive function in Lite. And again, whatever kind of project you're doing for the task, this is where you would post it. Okay, and then after the task, you want to reflect on your learning. And so we have the do a reflection, the medicine wheel, as we talked about. Okay, so clicking on a quadrant: mind, emotion, spirit, body. So clicking on a quadrant will give you the reflection questions. So for example, for spirit, I now have a deeper connection with others, the community, and the earth. And again, this is kind of a sliding confidence meter. Okay, so you kind of fill out, reflect on your learning in this section. And once you click submit, then it gets organized into my reflections. So I have, these are my previous reflections from the different quadrants, and the donut kind of shows my overall kind of confidence level in that reflection. So that's all reflections posted there. And I think that's a pretty neat function, integrating the medicine wheel with our task curriculum. Let's see. Oh yes, well, yeah. So we also have the My Progress. So this gives you kind of a summary of your different parts of LITE. So top right, we have the medicine wheel reflections, the tasks, and the radar charts here. And I can access messages in the plurilingual journey here. So that's kind of a summary of LITE. We also have, we've translated the interface into different languages. So let's try Deutsch. Nicola, can you read that?
Yeah, I mean, my glasses aren't great. It's Deutsch.
Okay. And I think Nicola, actually, you did the translation on that, right? And Ojibwe, we can also see here. So the interface has all been translated, so you can switch between languages. So if you're learning Ojibwe, you can use the Ojibwe interface rather than the English one. And again, there's a potential for more languages being translated for the interface. And orientation videos. So when teachers, and you guys can watch these too, also narrated by me with my enthusiastic voice. So you can see all the functionalities here kind of, so this is what teachers would watch to kind of get oriented to LITE before using it in their classrooms. And then at the top here, we have a link to our website. So this is the LINCDIRE website. And we have more teachers' resources here, YouTube, LINCDIRE tutorial videos as well. And this kind of gives background information on, again, the project. So, sometimes some of these concepts can be a little bit complex for new teachers that aren't familiar with plurilingualism or the medicine wheel or the action-oriented approach. So this would orient them as well to kind of the background of the project. And we have teachers' resources, for example. So CFR-related resources and readings. We also have, these would be more practically focused. And then also for researchers, a little bit more theoretical in this section. Some presentations and readings to orient to the project. And then in the About section, more information in some infographics that we've done for the project, for example, that Faith has worked on. So it was a poster presentation that we had here last year, I think. And the project overview. So again, lots of information on the project if you guys are interested. It's linkdireproject.org. 4 pillars, information on the medicine wheel, a glossary of key terms that we worked on. So any of the terms that we might need to brush up on, you can find them here. So again, the website, kind of a place for researchers, teachers, anyone who's interested in the project or who wants to get involved to kind of get oriented in kind of the same way that we oriented you guys to the project this morning with our presentations. You can find a lot of that same information here. Contact us with an email address for technical support or for the LINCDIRE project. and then a link back to LITE, which has one more functionality that I didn't show you guys.
Yes, people who are online, maybe say a second on the homepage because
Sure.
I had missed it. You know?
Yes, here's the landing page with a description of LITE, and then the four pillars with, you can click for more information. We talked about, and then we also have our resources. This is something that we'll talk about when we talk about the data that we collected. So LITE Cloud resources. This is a place where teachers can both get materials that we've prepared for them, and then also share some of their own materials. So if they've designed some materials for a certain task, they can upload it here, and then that can be available to other teachers that are using the task. So that's another kind of cool feature that we have. Okay, so I think we'll transition now to the data that we collected, looking at student, Banaf's going to talk about the student perspectives, I'll talk about the teacher perspectives, some of the findings that we got from preliminary work with LITE in our pilot classes. Banaf?
How can you come back on
Yes.
the presentation?
There we go.
We are here, I think.
Go to the first one.
Yes.
From current slide.
Oh.
No, okay. Never mind. Just let's move on.
This one.
Right.
So, hello everyone. I apologize at first. I'm
Sorry, Banaf. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Don't hear me.
We can see your we can see the comment box in the slide.
Yes, you have to go to. You have to go here.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
And you have to click
So,
on
yeah.
both.
Hello everyone. I'm presenting in English, but English is my third language. Sorry, and just I'm practicing it by a real life task. So I go through some findings about successes and challenges of using LITE in the classroom. We have just started the data analysis about LITE, and what I present here just is the first layer of findings. And this graph explains the perceived biggest successes and challenges defined by students. The numbers are statistical. They show how many times the students have mentioned one of the themes that you can see on the horizontal axis. On the horizontal axis. So like my plurilingual journey, medicine guided reflection, social media function, awareness of plurilingualism, awareness of pluriculturalism, technical issues, autonomous learning, guidance, and teams. So there are the teams that we founded by data analyzing. And the number of 20, for example, on my plurilingual journey, show that we have identified 20 positive comments from students about my plurilingual journey. And if you see a 0, for example, on the red line about my plurilingual journey, that means that there was not any negative comments, or maybe just no comments about that. As the graph shows, my plurilingual journey and social media functions on the right have received a very good comments from students, but the elements of the portfolio were successful. But we have also some areas of challenges, like technical issues, autonomous learning, and need of guidance from teachers, and also lack of time. Here is just some quotes from students about successes, and just because of the limitation of the time, we just some of them, but we have more than this. As you can see, for the multilingual journey, students experience a holistic vision of the language they know through their real life journey. Like they talked about a summary of their language life by doing multilingual journey. I just read the first quote. I kind of reflected on where I've been throughout my life, and it's cool how I've been to Egypt, to Saudi Arabia, and now to Canada, and how my language has kind of shifted, because I didn't know English when I was in Egypt, and then now I can barely speak Arabic, and it's kind of cool how I can reflect on how I have changed. Or before, or the second quote, before we really didn't really talk about that. But because of LITE, it was asking us our history and other languages we know. We actually got into conversation with people about their origins. And we have also very good comments. We didn't, unfortunately, we could not experiment the medicine with guided reflections at all our classroom, but in 2 or 3 cases that teacher has allocated time to try this part, we got the positive comments from students. So as you see, they think about their learning. And when the question like to reflect on our project, it made us what to think and what to do better next time and work on what I need to. And the third area of the successes is the similarity between the portfolio LITE and the social media function. Students appreciate the similarity of the portfolio's functions to those of their social media and find it easy to use and familiar. We had for sure some challenges also about the students don't really know how they can use LITE independently at home to self-assess their language skill. They need maybe some guidance from teachers just to know how to use LITE better outside of a classroom. I think it should be slightly simplified because the different pillars and all the different servers does treat people as a lot of work. So, and we had also, the students mentioned also some technical problems which are sometimes independent to the portfolio and sometimes dependent on our file. We had some problem with loading, uploading photos. It was about the size of the photos to upload, and also some issues with other writing system in heritage languages. We had a Cyrillic alphabet, and at the beginning of the our pilot, we had some difficulty about that. And they mentioned also lacks of time and methodology to integrate LITE. So like I think in general, not enough time was given to the site to actually understand it and be able to use it. Yeah, like all those different things, but I don't really know what we were supposed to do. Like, I'm just so confused at what the whole end game of it is. I continue just like a little about the finding the teacher perspectives. We have the same graphs with the same logic, and as you can see, the results show that my plurilingual journey, medicine, will, and guided reflection task catalog on the LITE have received good comments from teachers, and but that stays always areas like technical issues, methodology of integrating online learning as the issue areas for teachers. Just Michael will continue to explain a little about teachers.
Okay, so teachers had some similar perspectives. So the successes, one teacher talked about, this is kind of what we envisioned, an online place for students within the class to post their work and track their progress and kind of plan their trajectory and their learning. So we felt that was a positive kind of describing what we're actually going for. Numerous teachers reported on the efficacy and enjoyment of my plurilingual journey, as did the students, building a linguistic profile, reflecting on one's plurilingual development. They also appreciated the accessibility and range of the task catalog. One teacher said, if I were to find 3 or 4 scenarios throughout the year for the same class, oh my gosh, this tool is amazing. Certain teachers also mentioned that after some initial challenges, LITE was easy to use and fun for the students. And this is kind of a theme, is that some of the teachers were more interested in technology and more comfortable with it, maybe had more experience. And so they would often report on successes, and then maybe other teachers that didn't have the background or the experience kind of perceived that it was difficult to use. And then sometimes, like one teacher said, I thought that would confuse them, but I have asked them and they said, absolutely no, it didn't. So the teachers perceived that the students would have problems, and then actually there weren't as many. So that was kind of a conflicting finding. Some found it easy to use and others not so much. As far as challenges, again, the technical issues were mentioned by teachers. One teacher said, we suffered every time just to log in. I think that's maybe my fault. So actually what happened with the pilots is the feedback from the piloting teachers especially really helped us improve the tool. So I think a lot of the technical comments were, as we were trying to figure out how to build the tool and how to make it user-friendly. So a lot of changes were made through that process of feedback. So I think a lot of those issues have been resolved now. As Banaf mentioned, a lack of time to utilize more of the functionalities and a lack of training in how to use them. So because there's so many different levels of LITE and functionalities, it'd be really interesting to see a course, like a 2-semester or 1-year course, use LITE and try to, over the course of 12 months, to be able to integrate a lot of these functionalities. And if it's maybe for a shorter course, just choosing 1 or 2 of the functionalities to try, so the reflections or the radar charts, etc. Another thing that we got was that although the interface is in multiple languages, there was concern that most of the site is still in English. So a lot of teachers were worried about the time spent outside of the target language. And again, it's a lot of work, but we can look into more translation of not only the interface, but of the content in the site as well for those teachers. And I think that's a common concern. And then there's also the challenge of a kind of ubiquity and redundancy of online tools. There's so many different platforms out there now. I remember teaching my last course in September, and I had them register for like 10 different platforms for different purposes, right? So you definitely need a unique product, and I think a lot of the functions that we have, like the reflections and things, bring that for sure. And then there's sometimes resistance to online learning based on age or experience, sometimes privacy concerns, or teachers' current practices. Again, they're just not using technology, they're not used to it, they're comfortable with paper and handouts and things. So sometimes that can be a challenge that we found. Back to Banat.
One slide. So as the conclusion, sorry, just go. As the conclusion for the student perspective, just we got some maybe solution, or we just find some needed from the students. A need for more guidance to use LITE outside of the class. Need for more guidance on mobilizing and transferring language resources from one language to another at the right time to succeed in certain tasks, because the students were not really used to maybe change or know how they can use their different languages as a strategy of learning. Need for more autonomous strategies for using LITE, and it would be interesting to introduce tasks on the medicine wheel to orient learners to pedagogy and metacognitive reflection. And for the teachers.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, receptivity is highly linked to teachers' experience and comfort in using online tools. Also the age of the students. We had one group where the youngest student was maybe like 40. So they maybe weren't as used to using the technology for learning as maybe a younger group would. And then need for personalized teacher orientation, training, and technical support. So I think sometimes the teachers didn't, for example, watch the orientation videos or really know what they were doing before they brought it into the class, and that sometimes created some difficulties. Need for more resources and content from previous users. We'll talk about this in the roundtable as well, to see what's done and see how it's done. Angelica has a really good video that I haven't seen yet, but some of the feedback was seeing Angelica's video was kind of inspiring to then create their own videos. So if you have some of that existing content, that can be very helpful. So that's something that we can work on. As I said, LITE should be integrated into long-term courses where all the functionalities can be utilized, integrated into the curriculum. And I think that's the same point that Banaf mentioned. So kind of more support, more training, maybe some more materials. And I guess that sometimes the teachers we're talking about time outside the target language, also just learning how to use the tool, right? Can be time consuming, and they feel like they're losing time for language learning because they're learning how to use the technology, right? So there's those learning curves that need to be overcome. Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, Michael.
Somebody.
Yes.
So.
Sorry. I just wanted to know if you could share some of the training videos for the teachers, and if you could just briefly talk about them.
Do you want to watch one?
Or perhaps guide the presenters where they are and what they contain.
Yeah, so again, that's in the, on LITE, in the how to use LITE. So the first tab here, the orientation videos.
Are you sharing the right?
You got to share that too, yeah.
Yeah, you have to share the right screen on the Zoom to unshare. Yeah. Stop sharing and reshare. The other one. Yeah. Share and take the right. Which one? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, Angelica, right here on LITE. So yeah, in the first first tab, how to use LITE, the orientation videos. So that gives you registration and profile, tasks and posts, and reflections and level checks. And then again, to orient more to the project, there's some videos that Kimberly made on the LINCDIRE website, LINCDIRE tutorial videos. So introduction to LINCDIRE, plurilingualism, medicine wheel, action-oriented approach, and the action-oriented task template, so how to use the task template as well. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
We had another question.
Oh, Giacomo, yes.
More of a comment. So I ran one of these classes with my students, and one of the interesting components of it is the fact that students see their competencies in their language with that graphic learning out there, and it gives them an idea that.
Come here, Giacomo. Nobody will hear from the people who are out. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that's really important for students to understand, which is the foundation of plurilingualism, is to see that there is nothing that's very linear. They're used to seeing their language proficiency as a number, in total, and in IELTS, 500. But here we graphically organize it, where we see that there are, first of all, it's fluid, it keeps changing, and then you can see how it's a graph that is more reflective of philosophy trying to impart. And most of the time, students see their first language as a deficiency. And our message is exactly the opposite. Just to see that it's a strength, and it grows and it changes and it feeds other different competencies there in communication and skills and other modes. So I thought that was very powerful for the students to see the message behind it. The tool is fantastic and it allows them to see this is my profile and it's very unique and it's not a number. Language is a little bit more complex and language is a little bit more complex than just a number on paper.
Did you understand those are remotely? Did you hear?
Barely.
Barely. So, yeah, the idea, what Giacomo commented on was also on the basis of his experience, this idea that the tool helps take the students out of that linear vision of what it means learning a language, that is getting a higher score in a linear way, and bringing them to the idea that it's very fluid, it changes all the time, that their mother tongue is always there, and that and bring visibility to that language, and that they can improve in some parts and not in others, because then it will change again. So this non-linear fluid vision of language learning, we thought it was very powerful.
Can you talk to your supervisor, because right now I'm busy.
Sorry. We had just a second, a question here or a comment.
Yeah, it's
maybe try and speak up because
it's a very specific question, and it has to do with how did you integrate the CFR and the medicine? Task-based instruction for me is very clear for the CFR, but how do you apply it in the medicine well, and how do you integrate this different knowledge into, or I don't know how you did the link between. That's my specific question.
do you want to reply? I don't want to be always the same replies. Do you want to?
We should probably repeat the question for the
yeah. Well, the question is, how did you integrate the medicine wheel informed reflection to the task and to the CFR, sorry. Well, we basically used them in a complementary way. So the way the CFR descriptors helped us was to go away from a vision of a language as like an object of study, but seeing it in a more lively way as something that you do, and by doing you improve your different aspects. And then, so this helped us to create a task that were particularly linked to real life, to experience, and so therefore also relevant for the community, for the life where they were. And at the same time, we used the reflection that we had informed by the medicine week to try and bring them back to the learning process that they had gone through the task, which was, as I said before, pretty long. Like every task lasted, I don't know, 7-8 hours, depending on the task, but it was relatively long, to reflect on how this journey through a task that they accomplished had helped them grow in the different dimensions of a personality or a human being. So not just grow their metacognitive aspects, but also all the rest, if it had. And that's why we didn't have any, of course, no numerical value, but kind of, Michael said that your confidence with these aspects, and they had these kind of questions that were just guiding them. Because without the questions, we thought that it would remain still very, very vague, very difficult for them to understand how can I reflect through that lens. So we gave those questions to guide them.
So it focuses more on the social affective aspect of it.
Yeah, social affective, but also again the mind and body that exist. Of course, also
the personal experience,
personal
how
experience.
you live it.
Yeah, exactly. How you lived it through your moments. Yeah.
Thank you.
There is another question.
Yes, I'm just wondering whether for the progress chart or the reader chart, is there some sort of a visual to help them see how they've changed over time? Like, is there a comparative or? I think the ones we saw were just static ones.
So yeah, this is my level gallery. So like the reflections you've had in the past, you can then see previous reflections or previous radar charts at the different levels, right? So I can see, for example, I'm pre-A1, and that's my last, let's say, radar chart for pre-A1, and then I moved up to A1, for example. Then I'll be able to see. So you can kind of see the snapshot as you move up the levels.
So if you're going from, like, say, a pre-A1 to A1, it would change, right? And it might actually make it appear to them like they're evolving. And I'm just wondering, are they aware of that? Are they have guidance with that? Just to interpret.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we have the possibility? I don't remember if we have the possibility of seeing the holistic radar chart done different times. If we can record that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
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 Because we can record also the holistic radar charts with the different languages at different moments. But what you say, yes, is very interesting, because in the move from, let's say, pre-A1 to A1, you may for a little time have a smaller figure inside before you get growing, and then you are ready to move. That's true. No, I don't think we had the thought about this idea that you can shrink. Yeah.
And how does that? How do you perceive? Because I know it is a pilot project, and usually for 1 or 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so, how do you see? Like, is this something that would be appropriate and desirable, for example, to have, throughout a language learner's life as a continuum as well? And how then would that be managed, like in terms of access, and, or is that something that is for future development?
Do you want to start about the access and all that part that we had in mind, and also the lifespan development we discussed?
Yeah, if this goes public, then I'm going to need to have a raise probably. Yeah, I guess. Well, Enrico, what's the plan as far as the next?
And always on the funding. So one doesn't know. But no, the idea. Well, first of all, 2 things. We had the idea of having different ages, like having 2 versions, one for the kids and one for this is for teens and adults. As you can imagine, we didn't develop the one for the kids for lack of resources, both human and financial resources for the moment. However, as you will see from the discussion, Coralie will be talking in the group. She used a lot of the material with very young kids. She did adaptations, of course, but she used. So there is the potential. Only we haven't been able so far to do a development like this. But we would be interesting. We think that there is the potential to do that for kids. And in terms of accessibility, something that we have been thinking about, there is, Michael hasn't shown, but one part is accessible to everybody, but you basically cannot change things when you are just visiting. You're visiting, but you can be part of a community if you want to use it with your classes, because we really thought that there is this problem, no? Like accessibility. It's like a social media, so you want to also when you use it with your classes to be protected within a certain environment and not open to everybody. And so the teacher would get the credential, create their own space, and the students would, and they have done, they have.
And you can set your own privacy settings here in the My Account page. So whether you want everything to be public or you only want the people in your class to be able to see what you're,
So you could have sister classes as well.
Yeah, exactly. That was our idea, that you could have sister classes and you could also have a space, and that's something we have in mind where for the sustainability, if we have enough teachers that are interested, those teachers can not only use what we have already developed, but also continue to develop and then share resources, and this could kind of hopefully provide the sustainability for the tool. Yeah.
As an administrator, I really like the fact that it's that it has that potential and that concrete continuity to it, because in Ottawa we're getting a lot of initiatives off the ground to really keep to sort of connect, especially secondary and post-secondary language learning, because there's often a drop away in secondary and then again post-secondary. Just to keep that, and tools like this, I think, do a lot, do a huge service to promoting and sustaining interest.
so again, it would be interesting to see this integrated into like a full year course where they're, step by step using all the functions, because we've just had people kind of sampling and trying this and that, but just to see how the whole thing works
over a long period of time, because that's the beauty of a portfolio, that you can use it over years so that you can see how things change and develop. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask you guys to use the microphone to ask questions and answer so we can hear it?
Yeah, you should.
Thank you.
Yeah, because otherwise we can turn it.
I don't think I need a microphone. Is that enough? Can you hear me, Angela? Okay. I just wanted to make a suggestion. You could take those radar charts and put them into PowerPoint in animation, and then just put them on top of each other, and then you could
superimpose.
Time very, very easily.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's all.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments also from the people online? Anything else you wanted to say? If you do, just unmute your mic. Okay, well, otherwise we move to our panel and we hear a little bit from the experience. Thank you again. Thank you.